welcome here to the home of the undisputed champion, and of course Ferrari's biggest fan, as we are going to go to our home sweet home. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Welcome here to the exclusive race introduction to the highlight of Ferrari's 2025 FIA Formula 1 season, which is gonna be run at the famous track, one of the oldest tracks, definitely the oldest track on the European continent, which is the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, the proud host, of course, of the Italian Grand Prix. Oh yeah, Forza Ferrari! Well, we can see all the people coming in force over here because, of course, it is time to win it, just like we did last year, just like we did, 1/3 of the last 6 races. We cannot wait over here either to put it on pole position. Again, the last 3 races we've either been on pole position, we've always been challenging for victories in the ground effect era, and I think we will finally score our first victory this season, which is long overdue, I have to say. So yeah, I'm very excited. You can see I'm in my best fashion in this, obviously new for this season, even though it already kind of started in the middle of the last season, which is this Team Pro Polo, of course, by Scuderia Ferrari. It looks so good, it's so comfortable, and I'm sure our Ferrari drivers, or even me, Jan the Swelling Sun champion, will simply power to the Monza victory, the track that I've always won. The race that I've always won, the race where I've always gotten the pole position and almost gotten the fastest lap. Just once, our obviously new Ferrari driver Lewis Hamilton just took it by a couple of hundreds from me in the 2017 race, and this is exactly what we will be doing in this great, very popular race introduction, because at the end of it, we will take a look at how well I've done, and of course, this is the second race after the summer break, so it's run in exact the same schedule as it was run last year in the 2024. We are running that concurrent season, so you will basically see the race introduction 24 hours before the free practice starts, where you will then see the F1 24 hot lap. The F1 25 hot lap will come as part of the free practice 3, the red hot lap, as we will go around this beautiful circuit in less than 80 seconds, will come as part of the free practice 3, and then with qualifying we will be aiming for our 5th pole position, of course, as we are chasing that elusive 4th Formula 1 title. And yes, then the race will happen at the same time, just like the qualifying will happen at the same time. So the race will happen at the same time as the Grand Prix, when we are going to go for the 5 out of 5, right? Of course! And then the race reaction, to the real Formula 1 race this season will of course come 24 hours after, so I hope that you guys will enjoy it, and I hope that we will finally celebrate like we celebrated after the Chinese sprint a little bit, with the shiny golden Formula 1 Grand Prix winner trophy and the shiny golden Formula 1 winner's medal, because I have to say, in this race introduction where we will introduce the circuit, how successful we were, and we will take a look at the Drivers and Constructors Championship, I think this track will suit us really well, and especially given how disappointing the last race was, even the race before the summer break and the season in general. It is really important to cement that second place in the Constructors Championship, perhaps still challenge the orange McLarens, perhaps still have a chance, because you can see mechanical failures do occur, and it could still be perhaps possible to challenge for the drivers' titles. But overall, if nothing, we really want to win this race. This is the #1 race that you always have to win as a Ferrari driver. I've done ever so well, here in Monza. It's, I have to say, my favorite circuit. It's a relatively simple, but you can really feel just how fast the cars go, and it's such a joy to drive. And some of the corners, the chicanes, they all quite different, right? Because the first chicane, as you will see in that hot lap, is very slow, so it does require slightly different skill than, for example, the second chicane, right? Where you have to obviously tackle it in 3rd, 4th gear, and the Ascari chicane, where sadly our double Ferrari champion Alberto Ascari, of course, from the homeland of Italy, where he lost his life, that's 5th, 6th, 7th gear nowadays. So that's a completely different chicane. Parabolica is a bit different from the Lesmos, even though they are eerily similar, just like the Curva Grande, for example, right? So basically your car is really tested. You can really see just how good you are in terms of the ultimate car performance and also the ultimate driver's performance. And I have to say, when I drive it with the SF1000 T818 Formula 1 Racing Simulator, it is a pure joy. So here we will take a look at it. We will first talk about some of the news though, right? So what to tell you, of course, there is one unhappy news. Obviously, you can see I'm very, looking forward to it, right? Celebrating kind of already. Maybe, I shouldn't, but we are very excited. We basically forgotten what happened in Zandvoort, especially in that turn 3, which, so both of our drivers, for a very different reason, crash out of the race and score a DNF, which almost never happens. It's like less than a 5% chance that there will be a double DNF in a Formula One race for Scuderia Ferrari. I think we are the best in that statistic, historically. So huge, or you don't score any points, right? It's pretty much the same thing. Huge disappointment, I have to say. And yeah, I believe we are gonna be looking at Leclerc's fall. I definitely do believe so. It could also be Hamilton's fall though, because I think he will be unleashed, because and I cannot believe, I hope Ferrari will challenge this. The big news is, of course, that Lewis Hamilton will be given a 5-place grid penalty for the Italian Grand Prix for insufficiently slowing down for the yellow flags when on his reconnaissance lap to the grid. So that is a big problem, because obviously it was just by 20 kilometers per hour. I mean, obviously he was already going slowly, but didn't slow as much as the stewards would like him to, and he got penalized for this. That was before that botched Dutch Grand Prix even started, so that's just ridiculous. I really hope that will change, because to be penalized for that when especially nobody was in danger, it's just seems the overreach, obviously, over the governance of the sport. Usually we are quite fair, right? It's very important to show the sportsmanship, to accept when you do something wrong, like when we, for example, had that plank wear, which also has minimal effect, but we accepted the punishment, didn't throw the sport into the disrepute. But this is gonna be a bit of a problem, because obviously even if Hamilton is on pole, he would start 6th. Overtaking, I believe, will be possible, but again, who knows, right? The last year of the ground effect era regulations is proving a little bit challenging when it comes to overtaking, but there could be many different strategies. This will also be, of course, the fastest race, the fastest Grand Prix in terms of the average pace that you can have, but also in terms of the race time, right? So you can be pretty sure that in 80 minutes it will be finished. So definitely see how I will tackle it, but I'm sure that we will definitely be on the podium, and hopefully this will then kickstart our season that was already supposed to kind of be kickstarted in Zandvoort, and many rounds before that. I believe in Zandvoort we could have a double podium, and here in Monza I don't see for example, Red Bull's Mercedes may be challenging us. McLaren should be weaker, because obviously they are mostly stronger in the corner. So we will see how exactly that will go. And yeah, with regards to to the other news, we kind of haven't mentioned it, because we did that summer break, the Dutch Grand Prix race introduction quite early. But you do know, for example, that the new team is joining the Formula One grid. We will have 11 teams. The Cadillac F1 team, which is an interesting addition. I believe they will be using our engines. And having as they call them, the best number 2s in the history is a little bit disappointing. I was really hoping that Mick Schumacher, obviously the son of Michael Schumacher, would be in that Cadillac seat. I think it would be a great story, and obviously for Scuderia Ferrari we would absolutely love that. But I think he will be a reserve driver, and we might still see him maybe in 2027, if not in 2026 at Alpine, for example, because again we are big fans of Mick. Obviously Michael Schumacher is the most successful driver here at Monza, so it would have been a really fitting news, but sadly the stars didn't quite align just yet. But we will see. There are lots of opportunities, obviously from the history also of Mick's father, my childhood hero Michael Schumacher, right? Who I obviously try to emulate, here at Monza as well. So yeah, that would be the big news, that obviously the team is joining up. The drivers have already sadly been decided, maybe not what we expected, but and that grid penalty. There might be obviously some other news, but overall, we are going to go for the second race, in the second successive weekend, and I think all the tifosis are ready. We are ready to celebrate. We had the 3 teams winning, and it's time for the 4th team to win, right? Exactly. So over here now in the Scuderia Red Retina AME, we will show you the track and just how successful the most successful team we've been here by far. Okay, so let me turn it around over here. Okay, so I hope you guys can see it nice and clear. So yeah, this is Autodromo Nazionale Monza. It's actually, ever since I was a little kid, I can recognize this track, right? It's kind of like, it has that boomerang, the L shape, right? Yeah, and it is absolutely a fantastic track, right? So you can see over here, at this circuit, here is the start-finish straight, right? So coming out of the Parabolica over here, you will engage the DRS and you will be hoping to obviously hit the speeds in excess of 350 kilometers per hour, which is definitely possible with the low setup, because basically you will be running almost no wing. And I do believe that next year maybe we could see the first 400 kilometers per hour speed recorded, and Monza would be definitely the candidate. I believe Las Vegas, the strip circuit, which we also love, is another candidate. Baku potentially, maybe the Chinese long straight, but I do believe here it might be possible. So Monza would make history again. You can see the first chicane over here. We will obviously introduce it on our exclusive Ferrari simulator. Is very slow. It's very important to hit it nicely in a second gear, so you can go very well through the turn as a result. And then you go to the Curva Grande over here, which is just a flat out turn super fast. And then here the Reggio chicane, which you have to ride the curbs quite a lot, but once you learn how to do it and stay outside of the gravel, and the curbs, obviously you ride them hard, but do not touch the gravel so you don't spin out. It will lead you very nicely into Lesmos, which are these two 90-degree corners. Obviously behind them, you can see that it used to be basically a big oval, right? So the Monza circuit will soon celebrate 100 years, and it's an absolutely amazing track. And from something like, for example, from the Lesmos or behind the Curva Grande, you can actually see the old track. The drivers often like to go there, right? To see, to really connect with the history of what Formula One was, and into what a wonderful sport it's evolved, right? Then coming out of the Lesmos, obviously there's a bit of a king DRS zone, hard to overtake into Ascari because it's so fast, 5th, 6th gear, right? So the braking is very short, so you gotta make sure you are already right next to, for example, your competitor. And once you go here to the Ascari chicane, name of course after Alberto Ascari, just do make sure you don't fly out. But nowadays with the downforce, that's much less obviously of a worry. And then you go here to the Parabolica, which is absolutely magnificent circuit. This is one of my most favorite turns, when you go 8th gear, just a 6th, 5th gear, you really throw it in, and just make sure you don't hit the curbs on the outside. Like you see in an F1 movie, they can catapult you and it could be a nasty accident, but basically you just stay in an ideal line, and then let the engine and the power of the prancing horse Ferrari take you towards the championship. So you can see since 1950 pretty much Monza has been ever present. I believe only in 1980, when I was not even born, the Italian Grand Prix was run at Imola because the track needs to be renovated. But now obviously during the situation that we had at the beginning of this decade, of course, there have been some great improvements. It features the best podium, which we will also show you. When you are actually the fans, they can come right underneath the podium. It is now right above the track. So obviously once you then finish the race, it's just really very well done, very passionate, and shows you what motor racing is all about. Obviously the races, they are always around 300 kilometers in length, so we will only have 53 laps. And Rubens Barrichello, believe it or not, from that historic 2004 season, which I of course try to emulate with that F1 2024-2024, he still has the lap record from the race. Okay, here we can see obviously how wonderful it looks like over here. This is your Ascari chicane over here, so gotta make sure you hit it just right. And here you can see our Ferrari stats. So obviously Charles Leclerc scoring the 20th Grand Prix victory for Scuderia Ferrari at the Italian Grand Prix. We hope that it will be into the third decade of victories with the 21st. That would be wonderful. 23 pole positions over here. So some amazing poles like by Andretti, 40 years old in 1982. Could Lewis Hamilton, for example, repeat that? 45 years on, that would be pretty. 43 years on, that would be pretty amazing. 19 fastest laps, definitely going for the 20th. Now that the fastest lap kind of doesn't matter. Usually the winning driver is going to go for it. But this stat is absolutely amazing. 72 podiums in basically 74 runnings. And now now we are in the F175 season, so that shows you that podium is pretty much guaranteed, right? That's right, and in order to score the podium over here at this magnificent Monza circuit, what do we need to do? It's very, very simple. We need to beat the following competitors. So let's take a look. So this is our 2025-2025 Formula 1 Drivers' Championship, which is led at the moment by Oscar Piastri, who has 309 points and looking pretty handy at the top, having a lead of 34 points over Lando Norris, his McLaren teammate, who has 275 points. Further 70 points adrift is Max Verstappen, Red Bull, who I don't think will be, going for that 10th successive victory like he did 2 years ago. That was, one of the biggest failures of the Leclerc-Sainz partnership, because we definitely could have and should have beaten him to protect Ascari's and Vettel's, but especially Ascari's record. He's on 205 points and seeing his title hopes evaporate as each race passes by. Fourth is George Russell, Mercedes, 184 points. So fifth is obviously Charles Leclerc for Scuderia Ferrari, 151 points, thanks to Antonelli taking him out, which caused a bit of a friction at home here. Okay. Because my sister and mom thinks Antonelli is cute. Well, it will be interesting what reception he will get, because he's an Italian driver, so he will have lots of fans. By taking out the Ferrari is probably the worst thing you can do. A bit of a clumsy move. It's a bit challenging. It's easy to misjudge it when you go around. But it means that for Leclerc and for Hamilton, of course, again, the goal will be just to close back, towards Russell, right? If the race has just finished, we would have been, I think, almost 10 points or maybe even less, depending if how the final third of the race would pan out with these soft tires in Zandvoort. We could have, with the victory and with the 1-2, we could have been jumping Russell, so that would be some real progress finally in the Drivers' Championship. For sixth, Lewis Hamilton for Ferrari, 109 points. It will really be, to I believe score at least the first podium for Scuderia Ferrari, even though I think the victory could be on the cards, but with that 5th-place grid drop, I think the podium would give Hamilton a lot of motivation to then nail the 8th final races, like the 8-time world champion he aspires to be, which he, frankly, with Michael Schumacher should have been. For the 7th position, so Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Mercedes, 64 points. We do hope to keep away from him so he doesn't touch us. 8th is Alexander Albon, Williams, 64 points. Bit of a surprise that he is that strong with the points. And 9th, we have to be Nico Hülkenberg from Sauber, 37 points, and also on 37 points, we then have the Isaac Hadjar of the Racing Bulls, the hero of the last race. 11, Lance Stroll, Aston Martin, 32 points, still ahead of Fernando Alonso, who is 12 for Aston Martin, 30 points. Some interesting internal battle going there in Aston Martin. 13, Esteban Ocon has 28 points. 14 is then Pierre Gasly, Alpine, scoring all of Alpine's points in with an amount of 20 points. 15, Liam Lawson then, Racing Bulls, 20 points. 16 is now Oliver Behrman, has 16 points, and 17, Carlos Sainz Williams, 16 points. That's a huge fall from the race, right? Sainz could have been winning this race for Scuderia Ferrari 2 years ago, even though we expect Williams to be one of the surprises and be strong. They've always been strong in these races, so maybe this will be also Sainz's breakthrough, but what a fall from grace for him. 18, Gabriel Bortoleto, the reigning F2 champion for Sauber, 14 points, and 19, Yuki Tsunoda, Racing Bulls, 12 points, and then of course we have the 20th, Franco Colapinto, Alpine, 0 points. Could he score the points? He will contest the race, unlike 21st Jack Doohan, Alpine, 0 points, who will not be, of course, competing for the reasons we all know. So yeah, we will be 5th and 6th in the championship. We can guarantee on that in the Drivers' Championship, but again, with a really strong result and maybe some surprises, happening behind us, I do believe, that this could be finally the turning point of the season, so that we end the second third of the season on a high and then dominate the final third of the season. Here is the Constructors' Championship for the 2025-2025 season. So McLaren bossing it with 584 points, and obviously we are second. Beautiful scarlet red Ferrari, great fashion, 260 points. We definitely want to go and get, if we can have over 300 points after this race, which would mean at least 1st and 3rd place, that would be pretty much a perfect result. 3rd is the Mercedes, 240 248 points. We definitely, gotta make sure, that we stay clear, have no mechanical failures, no crashes, in order to really establish the gap between us and the Mercedes, so that there is, it's pretty much, without a doubt that we will finish at least second once again. Fourth, Red Bull Racing, 214 points, falling behind quite rapidly now. Fifth, Williams, 80 points. Sixth is, of course, Aston Martin, 62 points, despite not having a single driver in the top 10. Seven, Racing Bulls, 60 points. Eight is Kick Sauber, 51 points. Nine, Haas, 44 points. 10, Alpine, they pretty much guaranteed to finish last now with 20 points. But yeah, a lot of interesting battles. But for us over here, it will be all about consolidating that place and going for 300 points in a season at least. So that was the 2025-2025 Constructors Championship, and this was the 2025-2025 Drivers Championship, and this is Autodromo Nazionale Monza. We are going to go for a victory, right? Of course. So you guys, we hope that you enjoyed. And I really cannot wait. This is such a great circuit. I hope the weather will be great, even though, of course, who knows, the summer has been great, so far, I have to say, especially, in August. So, the forecast is for September to stay dry and hot. So that could obviously play into our favor, because who knows what the dry weather could, throw in some surprises. So, yeah, that will also be very important. And hey, Monza with the Tifosis always looks the best when there is a blue sky and a brilliant sunshine. And with regards to me, obviously, I contested 4 races. I cannot wait to contest the 5th race. Yes, and I won in 2010, set the fastest lap, and obviously started on pole position. Also, unlike the Tifosi special achievement in 2016, started on pole position, set the fastest lap, won for the Tifosi. In 2017, started on pole position, won for the Tifosi, and was actually beaten just by very little by Hamilton to that fastest lap. So that's something that I definitely hope it won't happen in 2024. In 2023, I started on pole position, set the fastest lap, dominated the race to 1 for the Tifosi until I almost ran out of the fuel. So we will see what happens, but definitely stay tuned. We have a lot of Formula 1 action for you. And again, I will be aiming for my 5th, the 5-star victory, my 5th 5-star pole position, and that 4 fastest lap. It doesn't get any better than this. And this is what makes me the Ferrari legend, the Ferrari's fastest driver, and of course, the Ferrari's biggest fan, Jan the Svalling champion. So everybody, now I'm sure you cannot wait to go racing, right? This is what Formula 1, this is the Ferrari passion, what it is all about. So everybody, let's go race and let's win the Italian Grand Prix here at Monza, the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, the Royal Park. Let's go! Forza Ferrari! Let's go all the Tifosi! Let's celebrate! Come on!